Hello! Welcome back to the Mind Buffs podcast. I'm your host, Matt Demwasek, and I'm here with Kayla Unrau. And this is part 2 of our conversation using Bandura's theory of self-efficacy. So apologies for cutting this in half, but we were really enjoying the conversation. So strap in for our part 2 conversation about a confidence theory that can really help you make a really good assessment about where you're currently at and what you can do to improve your confidence going forward.
Okay, you ready for the next one?
Okay.
Verbal persuasion. So this is Matt's favorite one. So maybe he'll spend some extra time thinking about it. But this is typically discussed in a lot of the literature as third sources. Mm-hmm. So like I said, coaches, training partners, business people, or business partners, or partners in general, somebody external to you giving advice, feedback, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Okay. But we're also going to talk about it as self-talk. So as verbal persuasion of what you're doing with yourself. And I think that dependent on the individual, those can have varying levels of impact based on who you are. But I think both of them deserve attention in order to start to develop situational confidence, self-efficacy.
Mm-hmm. I think this is also in terms of limited time, like short-term, what's what I'm looking for? The ability to change where your confidence is at quickly. This one, I think, is the most important one. That sometimes just saying the right thing at the right time to someone, or if it's your own inner dialogue of you telling yourself what you need to know about yourself before that moment of execution. This has, I think, unless you have research that says otherwise, can move the needle the most in a split second. So I think that's why I put this one as number one, that if the other 3 forms of self-efficacy are just not an ideal place, I still have the most control over either who I'm surrounding myself with and having them support me and what I'm telling myself to move the needle so that I can get closer to flow state. So yeah, I think that's why
I
chose
that one.
This one.
And I just want to highlight, if you're out there listening, thinking about these, like we said before, as 4 separate categories. When you're just talking about verbal persuasion and self-talk, essentially, that for me is combined into the emotional states, right? Creating awareness around that, pairing that with self-talk.
Yeah.
Creating awareness around who I'm spending time with and what models I'm looking at, and self-talk.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like these 4 quadrants don't overlap into each other.
Yeah.
They very much so do. So you're pulling elements of each of them.
Like even tying in conversations you and I have had on other episodes where, one of the most common things that coaches or parents will do right before they step on the ice or onto the pitch is go out there and beat them. Go out there and win. Your verbal persuasion has altered their definition of success in that moment of I need to win or we are going to win. So language is super powerful. For any of you that have been following Kayla and I's conversations, language is powerful. So that's why, this one it's so controllable. It's so much more controllable.
Within your control.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about third party or external pieces of verbal persuasion. You kind of talked about them a little bit. One of the things that I like to do with a lot of my athletes, but really clients of anyone who is struggling with feedback, or is struggling with understanding where to take reflection and where to take pieces of advice, because I think especially in the sporting world or in the business world, you're going to be slapped with millions of pieces. Your dad's telling you on the way home, your mom's telling you on the way there, your coach is yelling this, your assistant coach is yelling that, and your teammates have a different view and your captain.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. So you have all of these pieces of information coming in all of the time. And I think it's really important to have a good sorting system as to which ones do I think I need to listen to. So in your brain, I want you to imagine this. And if you can't imagine it, get a pencil out and draw it. Of 3 overlapping circles. So another Venn diagram for you. And one of the areas of Venn diagram, I want you to put, do they care about me? Another of the circles, I want you to put, are they familiar with me? And in the last one, I want you to go, are they credible? Okay. And as you would imagine, each of these overlap with each other in different ways. And then they all overlap in the center. So do they care about me do they want what's best for me as a person? Does this coach care about the development of me? Does my supervisor care about the development of me, right?
Yeah.
Do they want what's best for me regardless if it's in this situation or not? Are they familiar with you is one I think that gets overlooked a lot. But do they understand you?
Yeah.
Do they know how you work? Do they know what motivates you? Do they know what makes you tick? Do they know the ins and outs of your personality enough? Right?
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot in corporate settings.
Definitely. Speaking of corporate settings, for those of you that are familiar with Simon Sinek, he's one of the most respected people in the kind of business world in terms of being able to like improve performance and improve culture. And if you haven't ever heard anything that he said, please look him up. Simon Sinek is amazing. And he's been super obsessed about friendship and relationships in the last 6 months. And, especially if you're under 30 years old and you're listening or watching to this right now, so many of the relationships in our life are just convenience and happenstance. You went to the same school.
Oh, yeah.
You were on the same team. You really didn't have an opportunity to filter down who I want in my life. And that's why a lot of people have some existential stress in their life in their 20s, is because they're realizing there's certain people in their life that do not fit any of
those
categories in the Venn diagram. So I know a lot of people more millennial age used COVID as an opportunity to Venn diagram their friend group.
Yeah, absolutely.
And choose who do I actually want in my life? But yeah, this is absolutely critical for success. Again, even in the Serena documentary that I'm been watching through an episode a night with Holly. The last episode, I think it was the 4th episode, she made her team, Serena's team. And she handpicked the people that she wanted, traveling with her across the world to give her the best support possible.
That's super cool.
So good. And I love the way in which she found those people because they were super organic and relational. But yeah, I think it would be a good idea. It might seem cruel, sitting down with your partner or something. Okay, let's put all of our friends in the Venn diagram.
I don't think it's cruel. I think it's just creating, and it's not that you can't keep those friends if they don't lie right in the center of care, familiar, and credible.
Yeah.
But know what their feedback and advice is worth. Don't assign equal value if they're not in the dab center of that Venn diagram.
For sure.
Right?
A lot of the athletes that we work with come to us because the coach-athlete relationship is super toxic. And it's toxic for everyone on the team, but it's impacting that particular athlete more than anyone because their definition of success includes do whatever coach says.
Yeah.
Respect coach no matter what. These more old school type of definitions of respect and trust. But if we are giving our confidence to a person that does not fall in the middle of that Venn diagram, they are smashing your confidence to pieces day after day after day, and no amount of therapy or positive self-talk will be able to improve your confidence if you continue to give your confidence to that person to influence it in that way.
And being aware enough, even if you were to plot out the people in your life in which you receive feedback from and value their advice, just being able to, in those moments when they are giving you feedback, saying, okay, I know this person cares about me and I know they're familiar, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Not at all.
Right? I hear this a lot with athletes and their captains.
Yeah.
Some of the captains are knowledgeable, but a lot of them have equivalent knowledge, especially if they don't play the same position as you.
Yeah.
Right? Or they're very credible, but they don't really care about where you're going or your development.
Yeah.
So just being aware of I can take what they're saying for face value if they're credible is something that maybe I should change, but they're not reflecting back of who does this mean? What does this mean about me as a person?
Yeah.
So just being aware of that.
And especially if they are in a position of power, they're your boss or your teacher or your coach, it's not that if they don't fall in the center of that Venn diagram that you treat them with disrespect.
No, not at all.
Or you keep them, outside your kind of development zone. But it's just realizing that you don't have to internalize everything that they're saying to you or about you.
Yeah. I think about it more as I think if they lie anywhere in these three circles, what they're saying is valuable enough to be heard. It's what you're pulling from it, what message you're receiving yourself.
Totally. Yeah, I had an epiphany. Thinking about the Venn diagram, one of the circles is credibility.
Yeah.
So this is where sport fucks up all the time. I feel like they see the Venn diagram and they see credibility and they try to like pull it away from the Venn.
Yeah.
And be like, well, this guy's been coaching for a long time. And 29 years ago, they won a provincial championship. So like they know what it takes to win. So let's keep hiring this person because like they clearly know what they're doing. And they totally forget to look at the other two.
Yeah. And or like maybe they were very like able to create familiarity and care within those teams. Maybe they truly were a phenomenal coach.
Yeah.
Are you pulling them into a system where they're not able to do that? Are you going from like different types of sports, different levels of sports, right? I think really messes with that situation.
Totally.
So the skill that I want you to pull out of this for third-party information is more so just create a pause for yourself when you're receiving that information and then deposit it into your brain in what does this mean for me, right? I heard you. I understand what you're saying, but I get to determine the worth that I assign to this.
Yeah.
And I get to determine if there's any actions that I want to take past.
Totally. Yeah.
What's your smile about?
It's just another story. I'm just trying to think if it even fits in this moment. You know what? I'm going to share it anyway. It's one of my favorite stories. So, trigger warning. I'm going to talk about something that's more in the religious like vein of things for those of you that like find that to be like a difficult topic. But you know, regardless of whether or not you believe that Jesus was like God or just like some dude that did really cool things, I think there is so much that we can learn as like high performance people from like how like he lived his life. And the one thing I wanted to share actually kind of ties in the how people talk to us and everything that we just been mentioning, because like the very first thing that Jesus did before he went to work, before he went on mission and started talking in large crowds to people like all over that part of the world, the very first thing he did, he found 12 friends. That's like literally the first thing he did. Before he went to work, he said, I'm going to find 12 cool people so that I have like my team, my sport team. And then in those 12 people, he had 3 best friends. And I remember when someone had shared that story with me, I was just like blown away, because objectively looking at like the impact that he had in a matter of like years, obviously he pissed off just as many people, but that's what happens when you say things that are like really, what's the word I'm looking for?
Directional?
yeah, just to the point. Yeah. But 12 friends. Just remember that like he knew that he needed a support team before he went out to do like really difficult and challenging adversarial work.
And I think it's also evaluating, and this reflects back to what we were talking about before, the situations that you are currently surrounded in, and are those individuals hurting or hindering your ability to create self-efficacy?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other part of verbal persuasion is Matt's favorite part.
It's my favorite.
And like we said, it's the easiest, quote unquote, because it's challenging to input.
It's super hard.
But the internal dialogue that you have.
Yeah.
Now, bear with me on this little roller coaster experiment that I have. What happens if we took that same Venn diagram and we thought about the parts of us that are speaking? So let's say I'm showing up to an exam, right? And I recognize that there's a part of me that's super anxious and is telling me that I'm going to fail it. Can I, in that moment, look where that part of me lies on that Venn diagram? Okay. They care about me. Obviously, they want me to pass.
Yeah.
They understand me and they know what types of things that, you know, make me who I am and makes my strengths. But are they credible?
Totally.
Right? And I know this is a little bit out there, and it's a little bit more of a type of therapy that Matt and I know we both do, is parts work. But just recognizing what part of you is giving that negative self-talk message and deciding if you want to assign the same value as if it were a coach or a teammate to that message that's being internalized.
Totally. Cam, do you think you can hit us with a little diagram with this Venn that Kayla is talking about, I think that'd be perfect to be able to kind of put up there. But yeah, just even if you did what Kayla had asked, where you just draw it yourself on a piece of paper and you look at it, both filtering your parts of self and the people in your life, it makes it easier that when you do have a uncomfortable thought or feeling, if you use this as like a visual strategy of like mapping where that opinion or that where that person falls on the map, it could be a really cool cognitive like coping strategy.
Yeah.
That's really good. I like it.
Thanks. Anyways, so that's one of the ways that we talk about in therapy, just creating a little bit of distance from those thoughts, right? So I'm having this thought of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail, or I'm not good enough to do this.
Yeah.
How can we pull ourselves away from that thought enough to determine its value and be able to move forward with either instructional self-talk or positive self-talk? I call those the coach and the cheerleader.
Yeah.
But how can I then insert what I need in that moment?
Right. Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay. Any other skills that you would add to that verbal persuasion piece, specifically around the like self-talk?
Yeah.
piece?
So the most important skill when trying to incorporate like new language is like make it easy for yourself and actually be able to write the words down where you can have the visual reminder of how you want to talk to yourself. So like in golf, I have a tiny little book that has like my yardages and some other information about my game that I keep. But the first 2 pages are mantras and words that I want to be able to say to myself, regardless of how the game is going. For those of you that play any sport where there's a water bottle that you access regularly, it's literally the easiest trick in the book from a sports psych perspective. Like just write the word or the phrase on tape around your water bottle so that that visual reminder is there. So, because when you're triggered, flooded, anxious, dissociative because of the performance not going well, you're going to forget what your strategies are.
Mhm.
So just make it somewhere where it's visual. And if you have a trainer or coach or a teammate that knows how to support you and what that language is in an ideal way, then make sure that they are checking in with you and using that language as well.
Yeah, being able to use that in the moment when it's necessary.
Yeah.
Okay. I also have a lot of clients that will pose the question, but I don't believe it.
Right. Oh, that's good.
And I think that's something that would take a long time for Matt and I to pull apart
Yeah.
and discuss. But the quick response that I'll give you, and Matt will give his quick response, is what do you have to lose by doing the inverse of it? Because clearly repeating the negative core belief to yourself has gotten you into this situation. So let's just give it a shot. That is not all that's going on there.
Yeah.
But that's at least just give it a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go to the opposite end of the spectrum of that because what you said is right. And it is a good idea. And I'll actually just say, like, if you're not believing the positive things that other people are saying about you or you're trying to say to yourself, we're well past the point where like seeing a sports psychologist is needed. That's where therapy comes in. We actually can help you rewire your brain so that there's space for you to start believing a different narrative. So do not do that by yourself if you know you're in a place where you just believe that you're a failure. That's why we're here. That's why we exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find somebody to support you.
Yeah.
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 Okay, the last one. Ooh, my favorite one with all of my lovely little
Yeah.
feelings on the inside of my body. Physiological and emotional states. So physiological and affective, and then emotional. And we're going to talk about them separately because
Okay.
they are different. Okay. So your physiological states are just relative to how you normally function or how you normally feel. So today I woke up more tired than normal, or today I woke up more whatever, more than normal. I woke up more hungry than normal. I woke up more whatever it is. So it's just how you feel on that given day physiologically. I feel more tight than normal. I feel more whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your thought?
I have so many, but don't worry about it. I'll come in.
So one of the papers that I was reading was on endurance athletes, specifically endurance runners and or triathletes. And they related these back to like the feelings of strength, the feeling of pain, the feeling of fitness, the feeling of fatigue, any of those pieces to being able to complete the task at hand.
Yeah.
Okay. So Bandura proposed that the more demanding physically in this article, because it was talking about Ironman training, the greater contribution towards self-efficacy physiological states would make.
Oh, can you say that again?
Okay. So He said the more demanding that something is, so they're talking physically, we can talk maybe cognitively.
Yeah.
Not sure if we can stretch it there. So the more demanding, the greater contribution towards self-efficacy physiological states would make.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
What did you translate that into your head?
Well, it's kind of like the feeling of feeling overstimulated or overwhelmed. So like the more demanding, the harder it is on your body or your mind to persevere to that moment, it's going to have the largest impact on your confidence, either positively or negatively, because there's just that volume and intensity that you're experiencing from head to toe.
Yeah. Simply put, if you have a 10 question test versus a 400 question test, the feeling of fatigue is going to impact you drastically more in one than the other.
Yeah.
Some of the strategies or skills that we could add to our skill tree in this, and I know Matt had talked about it in our last podcast about assessing where you're at when you wake up in the morning of, I'm feeling tired today, but that doesn't have to determine how I play, or that doesn't have to determine how I show up. I'm going to do everything that I can to reframe that and be able to show up the best that I can with what I have today.
Yeah.
And I talk to my clients about this often, is my today doesn't have to look the same as tomorrow. It has to look as much as I can do with what I have within these physiological states today.
Totally. I mean, I know I'm a kind of athlete where the more and the longer the warm up I can get for my body to like feel like ready, the better that I feel like I play consistently. That being said, the two best rounds of golf I played this year were a shot like a 70 and a 71. The 70 was where I just showed up like 5 minutes before the round and I was cold and I was hungry and I just swung the club and did my thing. And then the 71 was like the beginning of the season where it was like 7 degrees outside and I was like just basically shooting the shit with two of my two friends. We didn't really get much time to warm up either.
Yeah.
And my two of my best rounds this year were in situations where like my body did not feel like it was at its optimal. And I know I shared this last episode, but the reason why I feel like I can play well in those situations is from the vicarious learning of what Fleury in his quote had said, or some of his best games were after having the worst warm-ups he'd ever had. That's something I was able to kind of adopt immediately and be like, oh, dang, okay, well, if you can do it at that level, then it can be done at any level.
Yeah. And I think that kind of teaches us to take the information about your warm-up or whatever it is that you're going into this performance as information, but not like it's not dictating what's about to happen, right? Like I'm feeling tired going into speaking in front of this giant crowd. How am I not going to stumble through my words today? It doesn't have to dictate where you're going to go. And if your brain decides that it will, right? So create that moment for you to reframe it of like, I recognize that I feel tired and it's okay that I'm not jumping off the scaffolding while I'm presenting today or running around the audience, but that doesn't mean that I can't show up in a way that I'm proud of.
Yeah.
Oh,
really cool.
Okay. The other part of it, and the part that I am excited to talk about a little bit, is the emotional states going into something. And I think this is one of the most common phrases that people slap onto sports psychs is reframing anxiety as excitement or preparation for something, right? But we can do this with a lot of different emotions and really taking a moment to recognize the emotional state and not allow it to necessarily predict the outcome of our performance.
Yeah.
Okay, it's information. It's not prescriptive.
Right. And I think it's also important to understand like the biological function of anxiety, if we haven't ever talked about that on our show before. But the purpose of anxiety is not always fight or flight. Okay. So I think it gets a bad rap that if I'm anxious, like something bad's going to happen. The reason why we have the biochemical function of anxiety making us feel how we cognitively define as like awful or antsy or whatever word you want to use, anxiety is a call to action. The function of anxiety is to get our ass off the couch.
Doing something different.
Do something different.
Yeah.
Right? It demands change. It demands action. So you don't have to always be like, oh, I must just be feeling really excited. It's, before a big game, when you're sitting on the bench waiting for 15 minutes to get onto the ice for the anthem, for all of the things that are happening before the game starts. Anxiety is like, can we just like freaking go already? Like,
Yeah.
so just know that anxiety is a call to action. That is why we have to have anxiety. We wouldn't do a damn thing if we didn't have micro little moments of like that adrenaline rush or that spike in heart rate to be like, whoa, okay, yeah, let's go, let's do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think about, I'm thinking about placing this like reflective emotional states in somebody that would want to gain self-efficacy in like social situations, right? Being able to engage with other people and feel confident engaging with other people and what emotional feedback they're getting in those moments, whether it's leading up to the social event, during the social event, after the social event is a big one. And each one of those is going to take very diligent separation and reframing for you to be able to start to generate confidence in that area.
Definitely. And another thing to note is if you, regardless if you're neurospicy or not, if you're just more of a highly intuitive person like Kayla and I are, we can feel what other people are feeling. I think, I don't want to like shit on the term. A lot of people will use language like I'm an empath to kind of describe that feeling of like I'm connected to the emotional energy in the room. Well, that's true. Like that's the purpose of intuition, is that we can be able to connect to different like energy levels around us. So why I'm teaching you that is that what you're feeling might not actually be yours.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm also thinking of a different part of it is one of the things that was really valuable for me to understand is it's not like this like weird gift. Well, I mean, interpret it as you want, but I don't believe it's this weird superpower that we have of being able to walk into this room and recognize that somebody is having a certain emotion. I think it's that you're so hardly attending to all of the cues all of the time, which is exhausting in some capacity. But that also means you're likely doing that to yourself as well.
Yeah.
So you're really aware to these shifts and these adjustments in your physiological state. And if you're assigning a label, specifically a negative one, to each one of those, no joke, you're going to have a huge negative narrative of yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
If you're somebody that's less intuitive and you're only assigning those narratives when it's really, really big or really, really small, you're not doing that as consistently.
Yeah. It's one of the most common reasons why people that are actually neurodiverse experience a lot of overwhelm is because they don't realize that there's a difference between like what their experience is and all the experiences of the other people around them that they're downloading. And so it's important to build in a skill set of like, is this mine or is this the room's? Is this mine or is this hers? So the reason why it's more difficult is because if you're neurospicy, you don't have an off switch to this.
Yep.
You just feel it, you just see it, you just know it. So that's the skill that you need to be able to put the time into to sharpening so that you can be able to kind of have those conversations with yourself of being like, this is not mine and I'm not taking it with me or internalizing this.
Absolutely. That's all I really have on all of Bandura's different states.
That's it?
That's it.
That was nothing.
It was small. It was just a little nugget of your time. One of the things that I really want to reflect. I'm going to lose my
Where's your voice, little froggy?
Excuse me. You're going to have to cut that one out. Try that again. One of the things that I really want to reflect through this conversation is creating awareness for yourself in which of these areas you maybe want to spend some time focusing on, using skills to create self-efficacy, situational confidence.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can I carry these skills into different parts of my life or different skills that I'm trying to learn? And just being really diligent about taking your skill tree with you and selecting the one that you want to try today.
Yeah. Don't tackle this entire theory and every activity that Kayla shared with us today and try to work on all of them simultaneously. Like be intentional with little mindful moments that you have in your day-to-day where you can kind of analyze each one of these 4 pieces of self-efficacy, and especially that Venn diagram that Shauna was talking about.
Kayla.
First, oh my God. Oh no.
I'll take it. I accept Shauna's label. I accept Shauna.
That's not good. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Continue.
Okay, I'll try to continue. Like, use this episode as an opportunity to assess where you're currently at, and then you can look at how to set goals on what you want to first tackle to be able to feel like your confidence is more within the realm of controllable rather than uncontrollable, but it's never fully controllable.
And I think that's what we'll continue to talk about in future episodes is more of the self-esteem piece, which is different than the self-efficacy. Talking a little bit more about the state-based confidence of, I think I've said this many times, but that's like the underlying feeling of confidence, not today or yesterday or this situation or that situation. So also bringing awareness that these skills will help, I think, move your state confidence towards the direction you want to go. But there's a lot of other work that needs to happen, and we'll have some conversations around that. But that work, I strongly believe, should be done with a professional.
Definitely. Okay. So please like, subscribe, follow, whether it's the YouTube channel, our Insta, or our brand new TikTok channel. That's right. My young Gen Z, my young alphas, or I guess there's millennials using TikTok. I can't say that's not happening.
Sure.
But yeah, please follow us on those platforms so that the algorithms that people are digesting can include not just ours, but like other people's podcasts who are teaching things like this, so that we can be able to use those spaces to unintentionally and surprisingly learn cool things, as opposed to just mindlessly chase after that dopamine. And yeah, really looking forward to continuing this series with Kayla, because confidence is critical. It is so critical, and yet it is too much of this mysterious thing that we don't know how to be able to have more say over, more control and consistency over. So yeah, looking forward to diving more into this. So thanks, Kayla.
You're welcome.
Yeah.